I was just laying there for a minute thinking, what have I got myself into? I was just looking at it. So I actually ended up having to get the blowtorch out. So in this box is something that's going to do this job. I've used it before, I've borrowed it before. What don't I like? Don't like this. This is really wound me up. Thanks for the complaints from me spinning, yeah. Can't help it, I'm doing it on my phone. Good morning. It's Monday morning. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Matt, and this is a channel essentially based on this. That's good timing, isn't it? What's Joinery Barn? Yeah, it's basically based on me being in this little workshop, spinning you around like that. So if you are new here, get used to that. Love it. Thanks for the complaints from me spinning, yeah. Can't help it, I'm doing it on my phone. Anyway, if you're not new here, you would have watched last week's video, and if you did, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. You'll also notice in last week's video, I brought this sapele to make some hardwood doors and shutters. And also, if you did watch it, you would have noticed that I said Monday was going to be a good day for me starting it, and I was going to get loads done. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get loads done because it's already midday. Because what I've done is, if you look at last week's videos, you'll know that I was doing some refurbing some windows. So this morning I've called in on the painter because it was his day one. I've just made sure that he was happy. Although he was happy, he's a very happy chap. He did have a couple of things that he wanted me to do. So I just sort of spent the morning with him going through those, put in a bit more epoxy. Just made sure that everything was, all as he wanted. So he's got a nice clear couple of weeks probably painting those. But it has meant that I've not hit the ground running. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to possibly whack you. I'm going to try something new. You're supposed to plan these videos, and I never plan them. I haven't even planned today, to be honest with you. I actually was going to go to the seaside, but I changed my mind last minute. Not that matters. Kids didn't want to go. What's wrong with kids these days? Anyway, so yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try something new, so we'll give this a go. It might help this way around me. I've done quite a few of these. If you get halfway through and you don't like it, go check this video out. Don't know what video it is yet, because I'm going to go through my videos and find a better one based on how good this is. So get your head around that. But if you do end up liking it when you're watching it, just stick with it, or watch both. They're free. Do you know what I mean? Speaking of free, it's free to subscribe. It's not easy to say, but it's definitely free to subscribe. So feel free to do that. Right, okay, let's go. Well, I don't know how that panned out. End of the day anyway, because I had the late start at 12, tripping over stuff. Yeah, because I had the, so if you knew, this is what's happening. No, I'm only joking. I'll try not to. Right, yeah, because I had a late start, I've worked till about 5:30. You know, so we got, these are the frames. They're for the panels, for the doors. They're the rails and stiles for the doors. They're leftovers, which I've milled down to whatever I could get them out of. And I'll go for this in a minute. And these are, they're the rails and stiles for the shutters. So basically, I'll put a picture up on the screen now, both, just so you know roughly what I'm talking about. And you'll notice that some things I through cutted with this jig. Everything got cross cutted a little bit longer, just because you get like a bit of, you want a bit of, allow a little bit of play at the end of your boards. But actually, if you watch a few videos ago, that video, should we say, I'll put it up. I recalibrated all this. It's actually perfect. It's bob on. I've got no. I mean, look at these boards. Look, the long ones. So they've had their thickness now, and they've had one good edge done. And then I'm going to cut all these over there tomorrow, so they're all say 110. Then I'll thickness them. We're going to do the same thing with the frames. So my frames finishes at 90 or whatever. Then I'll thickness them, and then I'll be able to use the offcuts. We will do the same thing with the panels when I decide on what size they're going to be, but I won't know what size they're going to be until I do a little bit of maths and assemble the doors rather than stiles. These are near on the right size. I might just be able to thickness those without through cutting. These just get cut as and when, because they're the middle panels for the shutters. So you'll notice I'd already through cut those, and that's simply because the boards I took that out of were actually these boards up here. See how wide they are. Now if I was to thickness and plane those, they might end up being thinner than what I want. So I just cut them roughly to size. The reason I don't cut everything roughly to size is because I want to utilize the wastage from the frames. So it's better for them to be thickness for me to utilize that wastage. So now I'll cut them at 90 because I've got a good reference edge. I'll still thickness them because you want, even when you cut it on a bandsaw or a panel saw, there'll be a little bit of play, a little bit of slop within that blade. So I will still thickness them, but I've got one good reference edge to thickness them from. And then the offcut should really be good enough to thickness and recut and use for whatever I'm going to use, plant-ons or stops or whatever. There's lots to think about. I've got some little edges to put on. You're simply working around the fact that that's not a dedicated thicknesser or a planer. It's a switchover machine, so you're just trying to work in the right order, really. That's translated to making any sense to anybody who doesn't know, but if you do know, hopefully you're not. Hopefully you're there. Right. But it's been a long time since I've machined. So, but yeah, look at this, look. And look at it. It's such lovely wood. So lovely. I need to do a bit of research for this, and I'm going to check my prices. At some point this week, I'll put some prices up on the screen, what I've paid for this, and what you can buy at Fitness and Plane for. I need to do a bit of research because I might start making my kitchens out of sapele. Right, good morning. It's Tuesday morning. Yeah, basically, rather than pick you up in the workshop, I've just picked you up before I get to it because nothing's really obviously changed over. Well, I can hope it's not, anyway. Yeah, and basically, I'm just going to jump back on it, get back on the video. Yeah, stay tuned, enjoy it. Will I carry on with the same song? That's what I asked yourself, isn't it? But anyway, yeah. Good morning. It's Wednesday morning. I had to stop filming yesterday. Had a few things just didn't quite go to plan. I'll just tell you where I am up to, and that is basically all the frame stock. That's completely done, but I've not rebaited it. So that's completely finished size, but not cut to length. Neither is it rebaited for the doors. All the panels for the tongue groove double doors, that's completely machined in size, in like thickness and width, but not tongue and grooved or cut to length. There's a lot. It's got quite a lot to happen to those. Once I start, it won't be a problem. All the panels are glued up for the shutter doors, and all of the rails and stiles are completely machined, cut to length for the doors and the shutters. So that's not too bad. Yeah, so if you've been watching the videos, you'll know, especially last week's and previous videos, I've had a few problems with my spindle moulder. And that's why last week I went to Felder UK to potentially get a new one. That was coming in at about 4,007. I probably could get a bit more off. Lovely guys there, really good service as well. I think it's good value for money, but it's not where I want to spend my money. I'm in a situation where it's a one-man workshop. If I spend £4,700 on a spindle moulder, which is my least used tool, and my panel saw goes wrong, that's where I want to spend the money, on the panel saw, or perhaps the thicknesser and planer. And any of these, because they're old machines, if it broke, I might make that decision to replace with a new, if I can't fix it myself. The spindle moulder, so I'll flip you around. This is what happened yesterday. Right, so I don't know if you remember, but there used to be a mortiser there, which you used to have to wheel out the way. That's been there, you know, ever since I've taken this workshop, and it was in the old workshop. And do you know what? I've only used it about 2 or 3 times because I just don't do that much big joinery. So at the weekend, I was thinking, well, I've got rid of the big mortiser. I have got a mobile mortar, so I could use that and buy a new spindle moulder and put my tenon block on that, because I just didn't know if I was going to be able to use this for the tenon block. And there was too much up in the air that it just made me think there must be another way. So I thought, this week, while I'm making these, I'll come in and I'll mess around with this. So I have done. I lost half a day yesterday, stripped it all back. And one of my big problems I was having was this fence. Although there's really nice adjustment on it, I wasn't in line. What I've done is I've actually taken these off and I've tried to flatten them with the Rotex, as hard as that's, as mental as that is. And actually, because they were warped a bit, I've actually got it pretty much bob on now. And there is obviously a little bit of adjustment. So that's where I'm at now. You can just see how flat that is along there. But then I've just got, this one's just stepped back evenly. So I'm just going to push that. I can actually wind that forwards now. But what happens when I wind it forwards? Before, there was a bit of a dip in it, and you were I was sliding bits of tape in there to get that right. Now I'm hoping they look completely in what you would call sort of coplanar, really. But anyway, I've done that, so I'm really happy that I can get, and it works. It's, you know, I had a problem where it cut out, but I think I've solved that electrical issue. So that now works. But because I didn't know if I was going to get it working, and also I lost a bit more time, because believe it or not, while I was down there on my hands and knees, I don't know if you remember, but if you look on this video, I've always struggled with this, that it doesn't go, when I do mitre folds, it doesn't go over 45. I didn't think it did, because it goes 0 to 45 and there's no plus or minus, but there is that great big gap in the middle. Anyway, while I was on my hands and knees down there for about 2 hours, I saw underneath the machine there's like a little collar on the threaded bar which does the wind of the blade with a grub screw in. I was just laying there for a minute thinking, what have I got myself into? And I was just looking at it. So I actually ended up having to get the blowtorch out, because it was completely seized. And I've put the blowtorch on it, put some brake cleaner on it, and I managed to undo that collar, and I moved it along a little bit, and now I can get the blade right. So I sort of lost a bit of time doing that as well. And I kind of had to, because I just wanted to make sure that it was cutting at square as well, because I've noticed that it's just a smidgen off. So it always bugged me that it didn't go past 0, because it was just a smidgen off. And when you're doing these cross cuts, which I'm going to go through now, what I've brought to do those, they've got to be bob on. So we're not going to mortise and tenon those traditionally. We've got that up and running. I'm waffling now. I've managed to fix that so I've got a square cut. Now I've lost half a day's money, and I haven't bought a new spindle moulder. And this is what I was hoping was going to happen this week. So I bought something else. So in this box is something that's going to do this job. I've used it before, I've borrowed it before, but I've brought my own one. So I'm going to open the box now, you're going to see it. I'm looking forward to it. I have opened the box already because it says that on it, and it's not that. And I was just thinking, bloody hell, don't tell me you've sent me the wrong thing. Yeah, so I'm going to whack you in the tripod, and I'm going to open it. You're going to see what it is. Just got that. So I've brought the Domino XL. The only problem being that it's come with these stupid new sustainers with this clip, which I don't like. But oh my word, I have used it before. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to go, I'll go, what? Never leave. Go get the old one, the little one. Yeah. Christ, that's heavy. Well, I wonder if the same, oh yeah, it's the same fence. So the attachments, oh, I've got one anyway. It might be slightly different, but yeah, that's good. Anyway, so I'm going to be using this with because it's Sapili and it's external. You've got Sapili dominoes. I think if you use the beach, I'm guessing they probably just expand too much. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, these big dominoes, monsters. It's going to make assembling those doors a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do at some point this week is I'm going to go through the cost of everything I've brought. Just because I thought that might be quite interesting. But this, I actually ended up paying from Alan Watkins Tool Store. I actually ended up paying £1,049 for that, including the VAT. What was it without the VAT? £874 without the VAT. That's a really good deal at the moment. They're like £1,200 everywhere. So they've obviously got a bit, they're not even advertising it as a deal. It just came out cheap. I was a little bit worried about getting it actually because I thought it was going to come like with, you know, sometimes 110 volt ones are cheaper, or it's going to come without that, or not in the right sustainer. I actually was hoping it was going to come in the old sustainer because I just don't like these. I find them so irritating. You basically have to break the handle just to use it. Bit of a click. I don't find them as smooth. They're supposed to be stronger, but I've never had a box break. Oh, and you do get the domino as well. And I've bought a 14. That's a good way of storing them actually. I have bought a 14 for it. So yeah, what I'm going to do today is film a bit of the process really again. I don't know if I'm going to do it in the same style. I'm not sure, but we've got a fair amount to crack on with today. Unfortunately, I can't assemble the doors. I don't think I can even assemble the doors this week because I'll do a dry assembly on camera and you'll see this tongue and groove needs painting first because it's a loose panel, the tongue and groove in the door, and that will open and shrink and, you know, open and that'll move and sort of over time it'll open up and shrink, expand and contract. That's what I'm looking for over time. And you'll see in between the boards. So it needs to be fully painted in my opinion. You can always get in and decorate it afterwards, but you then create this like seam in this other detail, and then the paint kind of holds it off as well, holds it in position, it acts like a glue. You know, if you think the whole length of a tongue and groove board, then another one, if that's sealed together with paint, it's quite a strong bond. It won't stop the wood moving, but when it goes, it'll make the decoration look a bit naff. So really, I've got to paint the boards first. So I'm waiting for the paint colour. I will prime them this week. In fact, that's a good shout because, well, we'll see how we get with the rest of the stuff. Right, on with the filming. But yeah, well impressed with that. Can't wait to use it. Really can't. You just know when you buy this stuff that it's going to be, it's decent. You just do. Right then, that's it, done, all done. Yeah, just done I've got 4 of them to do, and all I've done for now is just done them. Obviously, you've seen me do sort of like a dry run. I didn't put all the dominoes in either, I just wanted to make sure it worked. So we've got an extra domino to go in there, there, and there. 120 mil I've done them at, for those that care. I want to call it out, the old dominoes on external joinery. And then I've given it about 1.5 mil down here, which I'm going to even out when I set it all and square it. And then I've got probably, what's that, 3 mil, 4 mil? It's probably 0.5 mil elsewhere, but yeah, I've got about 3 mil down here. So this is a loose mortise, so I'll shunt it all around and make that sort of maybe, you know, 3/4 mil or 1 mil on each one. Yeah, just for a bit of expansion and contraction. I don't know why I say it like that, but anyway, you know, on the back it just looks like a told you I'd spin. Yep, on the back it just looks like a shaker. They're actually that's just wax from the table where I've run it through the spindle moulder. Obviously I lubed the table. Yeah, and on the actual job, these aren't actually working shutters, they're just faux shutters. And I think over time, people have decorated these details in flush where it started to rot. I've stepped it back a little bit. I've got to run a bit of sandpaper in there because I won't get a router in there. I didn't want to stop and start the router, so I'll just do this by hand. Or I might just get the block plane in, but I'll get most of it. I'll get most of it with the block plane and then get the sandpaper in the corners. But basically, I've just slightly altered the detail from the picture that you'll see, because I think I don't think that's how they were originally made. I also don't think it looks very nice. I don't think anybody's, well, I know when I install it, it's not going to go, oh, you know, you're 0.5 millimetre out. Yeah, anyway, just thought it might look nice. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is we're going to do the doors. Right, so the domino, what do I like? You know, you'll know that it's not new to me to use a domino. If you watch my videos, you'll see that I use the little one all the time. So we've got the big one. What don't I like? I don't like this. This has really wound me up. If I can pick this up. Can you see this little centre line here is in a different place to that centre line? You have to calibrate this. And I had that on my old domino. And I had that on the little domino, and you can't calibrate it out actually on the little domino. The screws, there's not enough movement on them screws. And my little domino, the paddles, there's like little paddles here that's registering points. They're not completely centre to that. So I think my mounting plate on my little domino is a little bit out. I do need to send it back actually. I've got to do it before the warranty runs out. But what I don't like is you pay quite a lot of money for this kit. Festool won't watch this, so I won't care. I won't care anyway. I'm not, you know, I love Festool, but Christ, just calibrate that for us. You know, it's not in the middle. What else? What else don't I like? This. On the little domino, this refers to your product, not the physical measurement. So that 15, or let's just take like the 40, because it's easier to half. That 40 on the little domino would mean that you're using a 40 mil board and you're going to the middle, which took me a while to get used to, but it does make sense because it's preset to sheet material. This is 40 mil to the middle, so they've changed the system for that domino, and they're so arrogant, they'll just go, oh yeah, it's because of this, but just keep it the same. Anyway, what do I like? What I do like is the box, not this actually, I've told you I don't like. I don't want to complain. The padding, the actual way it fits in, I've always thought the Festool stuff is good, but that goes in there, an absolute dream. And it's soft. The little domino is not soft. And the other thing that I think is absolutely brilliant, if I can get it, just going to put on the end, are these registering pins. So basically, you can click them in to get rid of them. So I could just be using, you know, these two, and then to push them, to get them back out, this little button there. That is wasted on this big domino. That wants to be on the little domino as well. I read somewhere that there's a that there was some sort of copyright over these paddles. Oh no, I didn't read it, someone told me. German chap I know, Bjorn. Yeah, he said there's some sort of trademark thing over some of these, but this is brilliant. This is absolutely amazing. Click that one in. Oh, look, you don't want to use it. Push the button. Yeah, great bit of kit. Is a great bit of kit. Just those two minor bugbears. And I don't like, first of all, I don't like what you've done with the other sustain handles. Right then, hope you enjoyed those last few days making these shutters. Tell you what, look. Thumbnail! Yeah, that was easy, wasn't it, that one? Right then. See you next, oh no, I won't see you next week, Wednesday. Okay, now what am I doing? When we do the thumbnail at the end of the week. Talking absolute tripe now, Matt. Yeah, see you tomorrow and I'll do the doors unless I change my mind. And do something else. But yeah, cool. See you in the morning. Oh, good morning. Thursday morning. I don't really know how that footage is going to pan out for the last few days because I've not. It will be quite similar to how I normally edit, but there's a couple of things I've sort of changed how I film. It might not even translate to being any different. You might not notice the difference, but things like that might affect how I put the video together. So what I'm going to do, and also you don't know what it's like till the end. You don't know how repeat it is. Anyway, we're going to make the doors. I'm just going to pick you up as and when and just explain part of the process of these doors. It's a little bit different to it's quite a bit different. I've never done a door like this actually. It's like an in-framed ledge and brace. But I haven't anticipated putting a brace on, but I am going to have to put a brace on. Yeah, it's like an in-frame ledge and brace door, which I've never made, I don't think. Right, so I've laid everything out on the bench. One thing I do, I don't know if anyone else does this, especially when you're making double doors. So like I said, these are at 47, and they're machined all the way around. If you look at them, that's 4 pieces of timber on top of each other. There isn't actually an ounce of movement there, maybe a smidgen here. I haven't said that, but maybe that's a little bit up there. But if they were a little bit out, I would look at countering them. So if one was bowed one way, a bit like crowning your studs, if you're ever doing your stud walls or joists, you should really crown your timbers so they bow up, or they alternate the bows for walls. But basically I'd alternate them possibly, or I'd put anything that had a bit of a bow on the hinge side if I couldn't reduce it. And I'd certainly make sure that if there were, you shouldn't obviously be having any bows, but sometimes the timber does what the timber does, you know, and different timbers react differently. If there is a slight bow and you're making it, you can always work with it basically. So I've checked that. I'm actually very happy with that. And then we've got our panels. We're going to have 6 panels. So you measure this, which is 605 divided by 6. I wish I'd done it at 606, so it would be 101, but it's not. It's 101.8, whatever, 10.8. So I've marked them. So now I know that all my boards on the face need to be that big. But in the background of these boards, which are going to be these boards, and you'll notice all these boards are they're actually like 125, 130, 150. They're all different sizes, because what I haven't done is I've only squared one edge and I've left the other edge just to be cut down to whatever size I decide, which is what I've worked out now. Now the size won't be 110 or 101, sorry. It will be 101 plus, well, it's not 101, I'll call it 101, it's not quite 101, but plus that's the knife that I shall use for the paneling on the spindle moulder, or one of the knives. So it'll be 101 plus this depth of rebate. And then on the other piece, when I machine the other piece, obviously I'll machine that rebate out. So essentially, the boards will be 101 plus that, but the ones on the edges won't be, because they're going to have this detail on the back of the board. That little, that's like basically that's a half lap essentially. The long half lap, that's 12 mil by 12 mil. So basically, the back of this board and the back of this board will have the 12 mil undercut rebate, and the bottoms and the tops going into the door. That makes sense. So it's a little bit complicated because I've basically got to do different elements of machining. I've now got to machine 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2, so 8, all exactly the same. And then I've got to do 1 times 2, so 2, that will have, let's just say, that profile on this side, but on this side, so it'll be a female if you like, with then a half lap on the back edge, and then I'll have the male side here will then have the half lap on. So I've got to do 2 of those and 2 of those because I've got 1 door. So I've essentially got to do 3 different sets of machining. And I've got the exact amount of timber. Normally I'd have 1 or 2 spare, but what happened was when I was gluing these panels up, if you remember last week's video, put it up there, I stood here looking at all of this going, yeah, I didn't take my book when I bought the timber, so I've just taken a bit of a punt, and I looked at it all and I was like, I think I'll have X amount left off at the end of this pile of timber that was here when it was all sawn, and that will do my panels and these panels. I've slightly run short, not like massively. I mean, my wastage thus far, I'll go through this tomorrow, but this is my wastage thus far. These got a few blanks up there, got a piece up there. That would have been an extra for the shutter door. I've got all this, which will go into lipping, which I'll put all that in. I've already put some blanks in the rack, and I've got 2 lengths of sapele. So I could machine some more if I make a mistake, but really you want to machine it all at the same time, and I didn't. I've also got a machine, a diagonal, which we'll go through in a bit. But yeah, that's really where I'm at. Well, I've been quite busy. I've done all my tongue and grooves. I've assembled. I'm now going to be in a position where I'm assembling each door and each bench, and I'm going to be writing on each bit of board so it only goes in a certain position. So we've taken 4, it'll be the middle 4 panels, sort of pushed them together, taken an average measurement, top and bottom, and basically that's just so I know now what the difference is for the perimeter board. Obviously it's worked out on the calculator to be exactly the same, but there may well be a slight difference. So essentially what I've got here is I've got this average, which I've now worked out. I will then take that off the width of the rail, divide it by 2, and then one joint will have the female tongue and groove joint with a rebate on the left, and the other one will have the male with the rebate on the right, and then I need to carry that rebate all the way around the perimeter. So now I've worked that out, let's just say that's 404, take off 605 from your 404, divide it by 2, and then you want to take, this is the left hand, no, this is the right hand on both doors, and this will be the left hand on both doors. I haven't finished machining this actually, I've just noticed. But basically I'll then need to measure from this point over whatever that measurement is, then add the rebate, then cut it, then take the rebate back off, then put the chamfer back on. It's quite labour intensive, this. Probably is a better system. I've also got which I'll go through, I've got when I square cut these and rebate them into the frame, I've got a chamfer this piece to the same detail as that, and then I've got a kind of negative chamfer these, so that water doesn't build in there, it doesn't drip in and stay in the groove, because you don't want water going into that joint, because it will just it will transpire to the mortise and tenon, so, or the domino. Quite a lot of work, but yeah, I'll get it right. And then just to make it better, cut one wrong. So I've had to machine, well, I'm a little bit behind, I'm probably about an hour or so behind. Which is my own fault, because really I should have machined, say I need 12, I should have machined 14, so I had 1 or 2 spare. I machined 12, really big bollocks, didn't I? And yeah, I just fucking cut one wrong. So I had to drop everything, spend an hour just machining 1 bit of wood. And then as soon as I did it, I was like, why didn't I just machine 2? Because now I can't make another mistake. If I do it, it's going to cost me another hour. Right, I'm all done. I've not glued them up, and I mentioned why. It's because I've got to paint these. These have got to be individually painted, because they'll open and shrink over time. I've also got to put the diagonal brace on the back, and do the dominoes. I'm going to do that in the morning, because I need to have a little think about it. I'll go through that in a minute. But yeah, I've got this little weird negative detail on the bottom I've created, which is copying what's on the job, and then the opposite on the top to make it so on the top the bevel goes all the way around, and then on the bottom, I'm guessing, well no, this is for weather, the bevel goes, it sort of like rests onto that bevel. So I've cut this bevel back so it rests onto that bevel. Obviously it's all mortised in, it's all, you know, sitting in this housing. I'm gonna have to come up with something just so, you know, if water runs down there, you don't want it to get into there. But yeah, the problem I've got is essentially I've given it a fair old amount of gaps, really. If I shunt them all, well, basically I've given each board a millimetre gap, which doesn't sound that much. And I'm sure it's probably fine. I'm probably just, yeah, by the time we evens it out, what I have got is I've got a chance now in the morning to recut this. Even if I can remake it bigger or smaller by 1 mil or 2 mil, you know, based on the research I'm going to do tonight. The thing is, at the moment, if it was an internal door, I'd do it relatively tight, maybe a little bit, give it like 0.5 mil per board, because it's external. And the humidity levels at the moment are pretty much middle of the road, but it is really hot. It is, although it's kiln drined, it could shrink a little bit more. But what I'd hate for it to do, well, I'd hate for it to obviously shrink so much that it opens up. That won't happen. But what I don't want to do is do it too tight that it expands and blows the door out. So I just need to work out whether basically from there to there, I've got 7 gaps. So I've got left 7 mil, but I've split it between them, and they'll all move individually. I mean, I guess I've answered it myself. 7 mil is a fair bit of tolerance, isn't it, from there to there? It's actually 3.5 mil either side, which is kind of what I've always allowed. It's what I've always been taught to allow. It's 3.5 mil all the way around. So yeah, I've just answered it myself. But I'm still going to do a bit of research. I might even jump on one of the forums and just ask. That's what it's for. Speaking of sharing the knowledge, this bench here, or these MFT benches, so Tony McRoberts, I made quite a few comments about the MFT benches and about my portable ones. In fact, while we're here, let's measure it. Let's measure it. He asked how wide it was, and I went, oh, it is 500. What was 550? Yeah, 500. 96 mil away, and I just use these electrical conduits. Sometimes I've got rubbers on them for different things. I've got ones that you put the joining pieces on, then I cut them down, so they're perfect because you can put them in, and then they don't foul an 18 or 20 mil board. So if you want to slide the domino over, or you just want to run the sander over, that don't get in the way. And when I did the router in, they were ideal. I put a series of them in down there, and because I've got 4 of the same, or 8 of the same board, I basically put them down one side, then put them down the other, and then you cut a bit of timber, or you use a wedge or a clamp or whatever system you want to come up with. Then you can slide your boards in, and it's held, and then you can do your router in. Because otherwise you've kind of got to clamp a board each time, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're doing both ends of 8 boards, that's 16 times you've got to run the clamp in, where you might as well just set up a little jig using the dog holes. Years ago you used to just have a sacrificial bench that you just screw into, but it just becomes tatty over time, and then you end up some screws snapping off, and you end up cutting through and getting a screw. But these are brilliant. I honestly can't. The only thing is, this happens when I redo all of this, I may well just have the one bench. This is another thing. I had to get the Capex out because this mitre saw here doesn't do both. It sort of predates when they bevel both ways. I needed it for the negative detail. I actually don't think I'm going to even use that mitre saw really. I might just get rid of it. And then that gives me a bit more room. And then, yeah, I don't know why I'm telling you. Right, I'm going to go home. What I have got though, I've got all these offcuts, look. These are all from the tongue and grooving, all these. I'm going to go home and get the pizza oven on. Right, I'll see you in the morning. We'll get these finished tomorrow, including the frames. It's Friday. I'll try and keep this short and sweet. You'll notice I've just done a little bit of footage, which was this morning actually. It's a bit confusing because I've not picked the camera up all day to speak to you. But basically I did a little bit of footage this morning of me taking these pieces, which is the bottom bottom rail, and I have planted a piece on and got rid of the rebate. So that was the rebate. I've cutting. So I'm always using this word cutting. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But I've cutting the rebate out, and I've put this separate piece in, and then I've sort of joined it and extended the bevel. And that simply is got it open. And that simply is so I can create this detail here, where before this, yesterday, if you remember, this dropped into a rebate into this door, and I was worried that over time water getting in this join would end up in the rebate and then into the domino. So I've basically extended the chamfer, cut that back at the end so that it all drops onto there. I don't really know. It's not. I don't do this sort of thing every day, make external doors and stuff. I mean, I can do it. It's just that detail is one that I copied on the job, where the panels actually go completely down. If our hammers are back, they go completely down and flush with this. Normally, I'd have these inset, or they'd go completely down and they go on top of a rail, but they actually go into the bottom rail, rather than on top of it, like an in-frame legend brace or. And I've made the frame as well. So done this seal, put a little rebate in there for a weather bar. And then I haven't got a dedicated cutter to make these. I didn't film it because I just wanted to get, it's quite a lot of work in sort of sorting that out. And I reduced some of these. So I've got closer to 2mm now. Basically, I take 1/2 mm off every one. So I just took 1mm off these two, and those other, and the M ones were easy to rebate because I didn't need the cutter. Yeah, and I haven't got a dedicated cutter for frames, so I've simply just rebated this on the spindle moulder, and then I just cut out the opposite of the rebate. Well, you see, so like that. So it's like half lapped, but quartered over sort of thing, halved over that way and then half lapped. Screw through the top, screw through the side. It's a tight fit as well, really tight fit, because I chopped them out by hand in the end. Yeah, just because I haven't got a dedicated cutter. I've just been asked to do a few more doors, so I might actually start getting clued up on the tooling for the spindle moulder. Like I say, I can do it. I've made plenty of external doors over the years, but it's just not second nature to me. That's the thing. Right, thanks so much for sort of sticking with me this week. It's not been the best week, I know, but it has been. I don't know. It's hard to know. These doors are nice, aren't they? They look a treat. I've got 4 of them, 2 of these in a frame. I suppose that's not that bad, is it? I know they're not assembled, but what I'm going to do now, I've finally just got the text for the paint colour. I'm going to pick the paint up at the weekend, and I'll get a coat of paint on all the loose panels. And then I simply sort of explained that before. It's just because you got these gaps, and if you don't paint the tongue, then you'll see it. Yeah, so I'm gonna get a coat of paint and all that on Monday. And then assembly, even if I allowed half a day for assembly, yeah. And then they're done really. I think I've got to make a weather bar and a lip and some bits and bobs, but I can do that while I'm letting the paint dry. I've had the oak confirmed for the porch, so I'll be on that next week. Also got a little fireplace to do for somebody in the village. Then I've got to start these wardrobes for this chap, who's unfortunately he's not gone to the back of the queue, but he just didn't confirm in time. So I've sort of put these jobs in front because they'd confirmed. Right. Anyway, I don't want to explain it to you. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Any questions? I'll be interested to know actually if anyone does this, all the while, how common is this detail? I'm really confident I've done a good job of that, because I know that water now can't get past there, and then it just drips down there. So I know, and it can't sit in the rebate of the frame, which is always a problem with pattern 10 doors, or any sort of door really with a frame. Yeah, I think I've done a good job. I'll be interested to know. Right, next week. Thanks for watching.